So my business, ironically, is sometimes selling less rather than more. So I look very carefully at buildings. I look at every single load that a building has, and I reduce, and when that, then I meet the rest of those loads with mechanical systems that are very well designed, not with exotic things, but with things that are designed, sized correctly. The fans, the pumps, all the things that use energy in the building are reduced to the lowest and most elegant way to meet those things. Now, the outcome of this is not hardship for people who live in the building. As a matter of fact, what I've found over the years is that by the act of reducing the energy, I'm actually upping the comfort, the durability, and the safety of the building. And so, while I'm doing less, I'm also providing a lot more value for the building. And it's highly unusual for an architect to show a slide of the energy bill, but this is something that I'm very proud of. This was our first year results for one of our buildings, and these statistics now have been tabulated so that they can be compared with other people's buildings around the country. And right now we are running at the lowest BTUs per square foot per heating degree day of any buildings for the same price as typical construction. So the way that this is done is with a lot of number crunching and a lot of understanding. And while you may look at this as an Excel spreadsheet, what comes to me when I look at it is the life of a building. And very early on in my looking at buildings and how they function, it really came to me very strongly that buildings are really like bodies. They perform in interrelated ways. And you can create a system that is working quite elegantly, or you can create a system that is really causing itself to self-destruct. I spent many, many years with forensic engineers, with people in weatherization, and people at the national labs, finding out from them how buildings fail, and then incorporating that into calculations like this. This calculation tells me how a building behaves on the coldest day of the year. And while it may look like a lot of numbers to you, I see the life of a building coming out of it. This is an article about me that was in Metropolitan Home, and I was very thrilled to have this article because Metropolitan Home is actually an interior design magazine. And while a lot of the work that I do is quite technical, there were people at interior design magazines and people in high-end work who are very interested in the types of results that I can get. This is me, and I'm pointing at a wall, the construction of which I innovated. This was an inexpensive wall that has great potential for energy savings because of insulation that's installed in the cavity. But in order to do this affordably, I had to work with some special engineers, and I've created a wall system here that has a veneer of brick that goes 7 stories tall without intermediate structure. And what I've been able to do is deliver a very well-performing wall as a prototype for typical buildings in New York City for the same price. And this is a diagram of how my apartment buildings function. And when you look at it, I want you to think of it as a body, because that's really the metaphor. The buildings are air-sealed completely around so that we can manage the air that enters them. So when hot or cold air enters these buildings, it comes in through planned openings. We ventilate the apartments to provide fresh air continuously, and we do it in a way that was innovated by me, in a way that actually works, versus some of the work, or most of the buildings in New York City that are ventilated with fans on the top that try to suck air out of them. This was a big innovation which has now been taken up by many people who are developing buildings in New York City, to the point where now it's been written into the new New York City building code. And this is the reality of it all. In order to be able to practice what I preach, I have to have a lot of integrity at every level of my work. Initially, I need to understand everything that I need to put onto a set of plans. Those plans need to be very detailed. Then I need to be able to administer those plans on the construction site in the middle of a bunch of things going on. So the job really demands integrity 100% completely through the chain of the process from the beginning to the end. And I have to say that as well as creating the integrity of a building, the process of my business has really created the integrity inside of me as well. I have to be very aware all the time of what's going on during the construction process. I have to say if something's done right. I have to say if something's done wrong. I have to withhold payment if it's not done correctly. I have to congratulate people for a job well done. All these things are part of getting this building built. And here again is part of the structure. When you saw the ventilation system in the last slide, there was also this portion of the flooring here where the holes in the floor are actually used for the ventilation system. And this is something that has been picked up not only by the manufacturer of these planks, but is now being done around the country as a cost saver and a ventilation system that actually works for people. This is a slide showing the amount of subsidies and government grants and incentives that go into the work that I do in my buildings. When I started my business, I decided that the way to approach doing better buildings was to do it for the same cost. And that has served me for many, many years now. I don't believe, as an architect, that it's necessary to be adding a lot of extra money to building projects. What I do believe is that architects and engineers really need to know what they're doing, and they have to be straight on message, and they have to keep their goals in mind through the construction process. I find that by keeping my jobs within budget, it really provides a place for me to invent. And this has been something that has really served me long term. This is another official document from the Department of Buildings and part of the work that I do as well in legalizing some of the innovations that I do. And this is permission from the building department to use the plank that I showed you for the ventilation systems that I used. This is a site for a job coming up in the Bronx. A very gratifying piece of my business is the transformation that can happen as an architect. So here's a very blighted site in the Bronx. And here's the building that will be built there. The building is going to be a hotel-like structure. It will have a very innovative air conditioning and heating system. The building is extremely well insulated and air-sealed and ventilated. It is loved by my client and is regarded as a piece of art. They're very proud, and they've defended it against people that are trying to cut the budget on this job. The work to reduce the loads here has been done by creatively shading to reduce air conditioning, using plantings also in front of windows, even on the upper levels. We've created planters for vines to grow. The central part of this building, which is between the split of these two buildings, will be a beautiful permaculture garden where we're saving rainwater for times of drought. Everything in the garden is drought-proof, though, so it would be a long time before any of these plants would suffer. People who are occupying this building can actually pick herbs down in the herb garden and use them within their cooking spaces inside of the building. I believe that transformation of myself, as well as building, as well as the perception that people have of green, is really a major motivating force in my work. And I'm getting a little choked up. And sorry, I have to recapitulate here. My company is very, very willing to spend the time and the energy that it takes to bring these projects to bear. Thank you.